Sure. Great. So Joseph, Tom, Elena, and hopefully future attendees, we're very grateful that you're taking this hour to spend with us this morning, this Friday morning, to talk about security in the cloud. My name is Matt Burke, and I'm the Director of Sales for Softlanding. In case you aren't already aware, Softlanding is a Vancouver-based partner focused on 4 key areas. One is productivity, including Office 365, Skype Voice. 2 is infrastructure in the cloud. That means Azure and operations management and the enterprise mobility and security suite. On-premises, that means System Center and ITSM, Windows 10 projects. We have a large custom dev practice that does quite a bit of intranet work, SharePoint work, as well as Azure work. And lastly, and certainly not least, we have a significant security practice. Today's session is really about security in the cloud, what you need to be thinking about as you make that glorious leap. And leading us in our discussion will be Nick Gaillou, who's one of our senior infrastructure consultants and very, very involved in all things cloudy and all things security. Without further ado, Nick, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And Matt, can you just confirm that you guys can see my screen?
Confirmed.
Awesome. Yep. So as Matt said, my name is Nick Gaillou. I'm a senior infrastructure consultant with Softlanding. I lead up our security practice here at Softlanding, and so today we're going to be talking about security in the cloud. So if you can see my slides, great. If you're just dialed in, that's fine too. I'll just kind of mention what's up on the screen for you guys. So just a bit of an agenda. What we'll be talking about today is kind of current state of what security looks like today, what the challenges are, and then kind of go into some of the attack strategies that attackers have, and what we can do to guard against those strategies. And then just touch on a few cloud-based solutions that can build up some security layers to protect against those types of things. So I'm going to dive straight in. So no doubt, as you're aware, in the last few years, we've seen a huge spike in as far as, we're getting a ton of phishing, we're getting a ton of ransomware, and we're hearing all the time about significant leaks regarding, credentials from huge providers. So definitely things are ramping up in that area. A few quick stats that you can see on the screen here. So the vast majority of attacks today start with phishing emails. So that's the ingress point. Most companies are not prepared to detect these types of attacks once attackers are in your network. So Microsoft is telling us, on average, attackers are in your network for 146 days before you find out. So I mean, that's pretty significant. That's a pretty good stretch of time for them to get around and move around in your network before you detect them. And then this last stat is just a little something that I threw in there. Every company has at least one click on anything. So I think we all know this is true. Everyone's got that user that, no matter how much training you put out there, users will click on any phishing link and be baited into that. So, and that's definitely something that's scary. And I encourage you to go check out this website called phishme.com, where you can see all kinds of stats about phishing, and you can actually they provide a safe way for you to try to phish your users and kind of gain some stats within your own organization on how bad phishing really is and how easy it is for users to be baited into clicking on things. So I want to talk briefly about an example of one of our customers that formerly worked for PNI Media. So PNI Media, if you're not aware, is an organization that provides online services to some major outfits such as Walmart, Staples, etc., for their online photo stores. So we had a security event previously where the CEO of PNI came and talked about a massive security breach they had in 2015. So I just want to kind of briefly tell you guys what happened as a bit of an example there. So on July 17th, 2015, they detected a security breach where the online photos and credit card processing information for their customers was potentially breached. So they brought everything offline, and they were woefully unprepared for the ramifications of that. From there going forward, it took them 45 days to get their services back online because they needed to work with lawyers and work with security experts and work with network experts to ensure that their environment was safe to bring back online and safe for their customers' data. So 45 days offline for a business that provides all their services online is obviously quite major. So that was a huge, potentially business closing event. Luckily for PNI, they had some really supportive partners that they were working with that kind of helped them with resources on how to come back online safely. And so they're definitely still in business today, but estimated cost for that event was in the tens of millions for them. And I think Microsoft says the average security breach costs something like $3.8 million for a company. So it's definitely an eye-opening and something that everybody should be paying attention to. So knowing that type of thing can happen, how do attackers actually get into the network and do these things? So as I mentioned, majority of attack entry points is through phishing. So the way that works is through zero-day vulnerabilities. So a user clicks on a link and runs some type of executable against their system. Typically, that executable has a zero-day vulnerability built into it that's going to help the attacker gain access to that endpoint. So you might be thinking, no big deal, it's just one endpoint, it's one system. But that's exactly how all attacks start. And worst case scenario in that example is that if that user has admin rights to their own workstation. And again, you might be thinking, no big deal, it's just their own workstation. But the interesting point about if that user does have admin rights is that that malware now has admin rights once they've clicked and executed it. And that means that the attacker can now control that system, have access to the memory, see password hashes of people that have logged into it, and basically wait on that system to be able to move around laterally. So what that looks like is essentially, imagine it like the attacker then breaks something on that system and waits for a support technician with a more privileged account to remotely log into that system to fix it. And then from there, they would again read the memory, read the password hash, and now they have the password hash of a support technician's account. At that point, if your network isn't segregated, they can move over to that support technician's machine using his password hash and wait for him to use, for example, a domain admin account. And once that happens, then you've got the password hash for a domain admin account and you own the network. So this process of lateral movement and privilege escalation is how the vast majority of attacks work, and it doesn't take that long to own a network through this process. So, and this is something that's it's been a vulnerability for a very long time, and there are some good solutions against it. So I'm going to talk about some of those solutions. But regardless of how hackers do get in, we definitely want to look at some different security strategies around protecting against all methods of attack. So how do we defend against attack? Minimize attack surface. This one's kind of the no-brainer, so I'll just talk about this briefly. So from a server perspective, obviously reducing your open ports, reducing the number of servers exposed to the internet, etc. That part's kind of a no-brainer. Defense in depth is a strategy that has been around a very long time. And what this means is putting up multiple security layers in between various components on your network, on your users, on your apps, on your data. So the landscape's changed significantly. Gone are the days where we could just throw up a firewall in front of our network and then just walk away and expect it to prevent against attacks on everything. Nowadays we're using software as a service. Some of our data is not even inside of our network, it's outside of our network. So we've got to worry about identities being compromised, because if someone's password gets leaked or stolen, they may be able to use that password to get data that you're not in control of through a SaaS application, for example. So defense in depth is really important. I'm going to talk more about what different security layers like and touch on a couple products that can help you throw up security layers using quick cloud-based pieces of software that are really easy to spin up. Rule of least privilege is incredibly important. So I mentioned that users' workstation having admin rights and how that was a very bad thing. So least privilege is very important. Your regular users should not have admin rights to their workstation, and even if you do want to give them admin rights, that's okay, but they shouldn't be logged in with that admin account all the time. They should only be logged in with that admin account when they need to actually change something with administrative rights. On a day-to-day basis, when they're checking email and surfing the web, they should not have admin rights. And likewise, your help desk users, your domain administrators, they should not be logging in with their privileged accounts either. They should have a regular account to be checking their email and surfing the web, and only use their privileged accounts when needed. Prevent and assume breach is a Microsoft kind of branded security strategy that I really like. So what this is to look at security from the point of view that, yes, you want to prevent breach, so you want to do everything you can to prevent it, but you need to assume that given enough effort and given enough time, somebody will get in your network. And so you have to stand up the right tool set so that you can detect when someone's in your network, what they have access to, and be alerted on that immediately. So privileged account separation, I did kind of briefly just mention. Essentially what we would recommend to the majority of our customers is to have a kind of a 5-tier access. So non-privileged accounts is what you would use on a day-to-day basis, even for your IT staff. You'd have a second level of administration account for workstation admins, and most larger organizations do this. Most organizations haven't got here yet, but essentially just creating a workstation admin group through group policy that gives that level of account access to manage workstations. Server administration should definitely be done with a dedicated server administration group. So your sysadmins should not be using their domain admin account to manage servers. You really only need your domain admin account when you want to make changes to Active Directory that you haven't delegated throughout the groups. And enterprise admin, membership in enterprise admin should only be used when you're actually doing something that requires it, such as upgrading schema or raising a domain functional level or something like that. So in a typical organization, a typical sysadmin should be using their domain admin account maybe once a week tops. Server admin account a lot more often, but they should be signed in with their non-privileged account to their own workstation. So speaking of workstations, so privileged workstation separation is also another concept that's very important. So all of your sysadmins, all of your IT staff should be segmented off on their own VLAN or their own network. And the best way to do this is to use 802.1x. So if you're not familiar with what that is, 802.1x is something that's built into Windows. It's built into all kinds of network gear. It's been around forever. It's an open standard. And what that does is it allows you to actually have your VLAN assignment dynamic based on your login. So for example, I'm a sysadmin. If I want to go to a meeting room and sign into my workstation plugged into a network cable in that meeting room, I can be thrown onto the management VLAN so that I can manage servers from my workstation at that point. But essentially what this is going to do is it's going to prevent attackers from being able to execute that lateral movement from a regular workstation to an admin workstation. Because once they own an admin workstation, they're going to own the domain. And then privileged password management is something, again, that a lot of larger orgs probably already take care of, but Just ensuring that you're using some kind of password vaulting software to secure the credentials for the various privileged accounts. You've got service accounts, you've got third-party SaaS software that has administration accounts. You've got to vault that off somewhere that's encrypted. So typically we recommend software that's integrated with Active Directory, so you can easily control who has access to to those various password lists. You want to have auditing on there so that you know who accessed which passwords and when. And secure password sharing is really important too. So, how many people have sent privileged account credentials through email, through unencrypted email, right? It only takes admin to lose their phone. You check through their email, you're going to find all kinds of goodies on how to get onto a network. So a way to transmit those passwords securely is definitely important. SaaS versus on-prem in this space is important. So, do you want to store all your passwords in a SaaS-based product? If you do that, make sure that that product definitely has a good track record of patching vulnerabilities and whatnot. Otherwise, you might want to consider hosting that software on-prem and controlling that yourself. So I want to talk about EMS. So if you haven't heard of EMS, Enterprise Mobility and Security is a suite of products that Microsoft gives us. They're all cloud-based, and they give us a really quick and easy way to throw up these security layers that I was talking about when I mentioned defense in depth. So Microsoft has put together this suite around a security layer for each kind of type. So we've got protecting users, protecting mobile devices, protecting data as it moves outside of your network, etc. So I'm going to just quickly touch on some of these products to give you guys an idea of kind of what's available out there. So the first one I'm just going to touch on here is Azure Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory, if you're not using Office 365 today, maybe you're not familiar with it, it's a cloud-based directory service that you can sync your on-premise Active Directory users into, and they can use that as a single sign-on portal. You can use all kinds of additional features, such as MFA. You can really easily spin up MFA onto any application. You can do some cool conditional access. So you can say, I want my user to have to authenticate with MFA, but only when they're outside the network. Or I want them to authenticate with MFA, but only when they're connecting from a machine that's not domain joined. So you can get very granular with the policies on that. All kinds of other really cool features. Self-service password reset, for example. So if you don't have that functionality today, literally within 5 minutes, you can spin up the functionality for users to be able to reset their own password using second factor and third factor. So for example, they forgot their password, they could provide an MFA token and an alternate email address they've pre-registered. They would check the email address and get a code, and they could reset their own password. There's probably about 20 or so really good features that I would love to dive into detail about, but I don't quite have time today. But if you guys are interested, definitely go check out Azure AD, or send me an email, and I'm happy to send you a slide deck that has kind of an overview of all the different features available there. So Azure AD is really about protecting identities, and Microsoft is telling us in the security space that identity is the new control plane. Again, you've got data outside of your network. You've got users that expect to be able to access data without being on VPN. So identity is really, really important today. One other thing I should actually mention about Azure AD, Microsoft processes over 1 billion authentications on a daily basis across their services. So across Office 365, Microsoft accounts, Hotmail, Outlook, Xbox, all of their services, they're processing over 1 billion authentications. So they have a massive database of authentications that they kind of run machine learning algorithms against to look for where are brute force attacks coming from, maybe this range, and they can block it out at a global level. So you kind of gain that security scale if you're using Azure AD, where Microsoft can leverage that scale to protect you. So that's Azure AD. Intune, no doubt you've heard about Intune. Intune's definitely grown. They've implemented a brand new portal recently. Sorry, 1 second. So they've implemented a brand new portal. Everything with Intune is now cloud-based. It can tie into SCCM. But if you're not familiar, Intune essentially is an MDM solution that can protect your devices as they move inside and outside of your network. So you can protect phones, you can protect tablets, you can even protect PCs. You can create policies to require that devices are encrypted, require their domain joined, require they have specific software installed. So you get a ton of control around how your devices work. If you're not using Intune, you definitely still need a security layer at least around your devices that are going to have email. So, if your organization is not currently requiring that devices that have email, such as phones, are encrypted, I would highly recommend that you get on board with that. So even with Exchange and Exchange Online, there's basic functionality that you can go in there and you can say, before somebody can active sync their mail down to their device, at least require a 4-digit PIN code and that the device is encrypted. It's very easy. If you're running Exchange, it's free to run that. So at a minimum, implement that security layer if you're not going to go all the way with MDM. And then just a side note, all the modern Android and iOS devices support encryption at this point. No reason why we shouldn't be implementing something like that. So that's Intune. Azure Information Protection. So you may be familiar with Active Directory Rights Management Services, or RMS, which has been around since I think like 2003 or so. So Azure Information Protection is kind of the latest iteration of that, and it's a cloud-based service you can run without having to have any on-prem servers. And what this does is it kind of wraps data before it goes outside your network. So give you a classic use case example. You've got an HR department. They've got a document with all the SIN numbers for all your employees. You definitely would not want somebody to accidentally email that outside the company. So you can do things like automatically classify documents based on certain patterns. So it could find a SIN number, or what looks like a SIN number, and automatically classify that as confidential and require that before it's sent outside of the network, you encrypt it. You can do things like access control. So you can send a document out and it's encrypted, and before the user can open it, they actually have to check with the cloud-based servers to confirm they still have access. So you'll get a notification that they opened it, and you can revoke it. And when you revoke that document and they try to open it, they will get a notification they no longer have access. You will get a notification saying they tried to open it. So even though they still have a copy of that document, it's encrypted. They can't decrypt it until Microsoft server says they can. That's information protection. Cloud App Security. So Cloud App Security is a great way for your organization to figure out exactly what cloud apps are used through Cloud App Discovery and to control those cloud apps. So Microsoft has a library of, I think, 2,600 cloud applications that they've integrated with in some form or another. And you can actually you can go out and discover with some network agents, you can discover what cloud apps are in use on your network. So you can find all that shadow IT that's kind of snuck up behind you. And then you can tag those applications as sanctioned or unsanctioned. So you can block users from using unsanctioned applications, point them to the sanctioned applications. And some applications actually have a higher level of integration where you can control what they do inside that application. So I think Dropbox and Salesforce are some examples of applications where within Cloud App Security, you can control what they do in those third-party applications. So for example, with Dropbox, you can allow them to share documents but prevent them from sharing files or documents externally outside the company, even within Dropbox. So really cool tool to be able to kind of get a handle on, that shadow IT. Maybe you've got other departments that have gone out and spun up services without you being able to vet out the security within them. And advanced threat analytics. So this is a really key piece of technology that I would really recommend any sizable organization has in place. So what advanced threat analytics is, it's an on-prem security solution that ties into your domain controllers. And what it does is it analyzes all the traffic going to and from your domain controllers and looks through the security logs. And it can warn you against things like brute force attacks, can warn you against pass to hash, lateral movement on your network, all kinds of really good insights. And so the way this works is you just install a gateway onto each of your domain controllers, and that forwards off all the events to your advanced threat analytics central server. So it gives you like a web-based portal that you sign into, and it'll give you alerts that are pre-classified with a risk level. So you get a risk level like low, medium, or high. So when you sign into the portal, you can immediately get an at-a-glance view of what's important, what needs to be taken care of right now. And you can take that data and you can forward it off to a SIM analyzing tool such as Splunk in a standardized format, so that if you do already have a SIM solution in place today, you can maintain that single pane of glass. Just let ATA collect those events and forward them off. Couple notes on how you buy ATA. So all the products I'm showing you right now are part of the EMS suite, which is like a license. You can buy them separately. But just one thing to note with ATA, if you do have Enterprise Cal on an agreement already, you probably already do have a license for ATA. Confirm obviously with your licensing rep, but just want to let you know, a lot of people don't know that. So you may be able to implement ATA at no additional cost. So that's kind of a quick overview of the EMS suite, just some examples of some of the cloud-based software that's out there right now that you can kind of create these security layers relatively quickly. And that's kind of it for my slide deck here. So we've got a relatively small group. If anybody has questions at this point, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. And if not, Matt will be following up. So Matt, if you weren't here at the beginning of the call, is our sales director. He'll be following up, I think, via email, just to kind of touch base and let you guys know that we're more than happy to work with you guys to demo any of these products or talk about security in general, talk about security layers, look at your security layers you have in place right now, and provide some recommendations. So feel free to get a hold of Matt or myself at any time, and we can work together. So again, if there's any questions, feel free to message them now or unmute yourself. Other than that, that's my presentation. So I've got some questions coming in via instant message here. I'll just give Will a minute and then read it out so that you guys can hear. So Will's question is just regarding defense in depth. There's an assumption that there's already some decent security practices in place. Will Softlanding help identify some of the prerequisites that need to be in place? Example, how organization uses admin privileges. A lot of places using domain admin incorrectly. Yeah, so for sure, I've done these types of analysis for various organizations, and it's very common that organizations are using their admin privileges incorrectly. So rule of least privilege is what we like to follow, but in practice, we don't see a lot of people using it correctly. It's actually surprisingly easy to adjust your administrative practices to use rule of least privilege. So, typically what we do is we go in and we look at how many different account tiers do you have? Do you have server management? Do you have workstation management? Do you have domain admins separated out? And how are you using those? So it's really easy to create those accounts, delegate the properly through AD and also through group policy, and adjust to those. So definitely Softlanding will help come in and look at what you guys are using today and make some suggestions for sure.